What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Airflow Podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Thomas, and I'm excited to be back in the groove again when it comes to podcasting. I've been experiencing some great highs and some challenges along the way, but just happy to be back. Had a chance to see my oldest son, our middle child, graduate from high school. That was an amazing thing. We took an amazing family trip after that, and then my wife and I celebrated our 22 years of our anniversary. I was gonna say 22 years of something else, not bad, but it was just 22 years and it went blank. I started thinking like, man, it has been 22 years. But yeah, we celebrate 22 years of marriage. Um, and that in itself was a great thing, and I don't want to take too much time with that, but I'm just thankful for my family. I'm thankful for my village. um as I mentioned, there's been some great highs and there's been some challenges. I'm not going to call them low of lows, but they're I've had some low points through this time. Just over the past 6 months, it's been different things, but God is still faithful. And, that kind of leads me into um, this episode. It's called Faith, and it's listed as an acronym. The acronym stands for faithfulness, adaptability, inspiration, trust, and humility. I wanted to target a little bit of a different way to talk about faith because typically you hear, faith comes by hearing by the word of God. You hear that faith is, you hear all the different definitions of faith, believing in things that are unseen as though they are. You just hear all those different things, definitions, I should say, of faith, and they're all very true. Having faith in something, meaning, you may not be able to see it, you can't touch it, but you have faith that, or you have belief, that it's there, it's obtainable, and you have to keep that mindset up, especially in the world we live in today, right? Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat and say that the world is the world is a great place and there's so many. I mean, there are a lot of great things that are going on, but you know the world is changing. It's ever changing. And, through this journey, we have to make sure that we stay rooted in faith and rooted in our relationship with Christ and, the people that God puts in our lives. And sometimes those people are there for, you're here for a reason and they're there for a season. And it's not always those. Some relationships you deal with to help you get to the place where you need to go, or it helps you to move away the place that you are at that point in time so that you can hear from God and go to that next place. So today we're going to break down uh, the acronym FAITH, and we're going to talk about, as I mentioned, faithfulness, adaptability, inspiration, trust, and humility. So when we talk about faithfulness, the first letter of the word faith, we want to focus on the the phrase, staying loyal and committed. Stay loyal and committed. Stay loyal and committed. Are those two in the same? One in the same? No. Um, to be loyal to something, sometimes you can have an undying, you hear people say they have an undying loyalty, or you can just be so loyal that it's almost a blind thing. Like, no matter what they do, you are going to be loyal to that person, to that process, to that thing, whatever it is. You're just loyal. You may have a certain brand of coffee that you like, and you are loyal to that company no matter how bad it is. You are loyal to Starbucks, and they can mess up your order, and you will stay loyal and committed. We'll touch upon that, um, because you've had enough of that product to know that, oh, that was just a bad day. You're committed because it brings you something, in the morning or whenever you have it. I'm not a coffee drinker, but obviously I know people. I hear them talk about it all the time. And I use that as a definition, or kind of as an example, I should say. But when we think about faithfulness, we think about faithfulness to Christ. We think about faithfulness to our spouses. We think about faithfulness to, you know, people that we're in a relationship with. We think about our kids. We think about, staying loyal to the family, committed to building the family, committed to Christ. All those things make up faithfulness. It makes up being faithful. And you have to really be driven and have a purpose. You have to have a why. You have to have kind of, this is my North Star, because that's what it's going to come down to when you're going through the darkest moments, when you're going, through the storms. You've got to understand, what is my why? Why am I staying loyal to this? Why am I why am I committing to this? When we talk about, again, faithfulness, why? And then you go back to, well, what is your why? I hear people a lot of times, and I posted something the other day on LinkedIn. It was around, when you're asked, whether it's an interview or, different people just are questioning, why are you doing the things that you do? Why are you committed and loyal to this place? And I said, well, what's your why? Because they want to understand what's really driving you to get up out of the bed and do the stuff that you do every morning, every day, whatever that is. And most times we give answers like, oh, well, my why is my wife, my why is my kids, which is nothing wrong with that. My why is, to take care of my parents. My why is to gain, certain amount of income. My why is to get a certain title in my job and my career. My why is so that I can travel. It's always leaning or leading back to something that is external from you personally. And so, in the post, it really said, before we can focus on anybody else, we need to at least include ourselves in that why. Why we're driven to do things. We've got to love ourselves enough to say, I'm worthy enough of being part of that why, you know. And it's nothing wrong with that and taking that mindset, because if you love yourself and you're committed and loyal to building you and making you the best person, that's going to all fall in line. Because if you're the best person that you can be, or if you're the best person that that you can be in Christ, you're going to be the best person that you are, that you can be for your spouse, for your kids, for your family, um, for the relationships that you're supposed to have, the career, all that stuff lines up. And so that's understanding your why, but that's going to drive you in terms of what you're staying loyal to. What are you committed to? Are you committed to excellence? Doesn't mean you won't fail, but you're staying faithful to that process. Are you committed to really being the best version of you? You know, and so that helps to drive the conversation, right? Because there's going to be storms, whether it's a relationship, whether it's whether it's their career, whether it's no matter what it is, parenthood, all those things, you're going to have challenges, and we all experience them. I've experienced them firsthand, just in my journey with my family. I've seen it even now, some of the challenges that we're going through right now. And it's interesting, and it makes you question some things about yourself, and I've been questioning things about me. um it sort of, but it also drives me, because I come back to the center. I come back to, you know my purpose. I come back to my source, which is Christ, being rooted in faith. And then that helps me to stay faithful, because I know that God has been so good, to me and my family. And the reason why we are where we are is because of our faith in Him and His love for us. So that's why I stay loyal and committed. That's why, the times where, I've had dark times in my life, as I mentioned before. And there are times where I'm like, I just, what's my purpose of being here and wanting to give up? Just like, what? Maybe I'm just better off not being here. Maybe that is going to start. And that's not, that's the enemy trying to distort, my faithfulness to Christ, trying to get me to focus on my circumstance than more so than focus on, what Christ has already done for me. And so that drives me, to make sure that I know that the challenges I'm going through right now with my family, the challenges that, my wife, we're all experiencing at different points in time, I know that that means that there is something greater on the other side of that. We're in the deep water right now. We are 15,000 feet out into the ocean, crazy depths. And it's going to be the same amount of work to get to the other side than to turn back around. So, you know, I've got to stay loyal and committed to the process, whatever it is that God has for me. Everything that I've planned, everything that I thought that I wanted, my visions, that when I see that there are times when they don't fall through the way I expect them to, but I know that God is always there. He's always watching, he's always listening, and he's always moving things and helping me to get to the place where I'm supposed to be. And it's always going to have a better outcome than what I can ever imagine or believe, because that's how much God loves me. And I have to remember that. No matter what, you know, I've got to know that God loves me. He loves me enough to give me some of these things to grow me, to not let me stay content. And that helps to grow my faith. And the more he does that, the more loyal and committed I've got to be in the process, because I can't go to those higher heights, those greater heights, and not be prepared for some of the challenges that come with it. So, staying loyal, staying committed, that's the first piece of it when we talk about faithfulness. When we look at the next letter, adaptability, and that means the definition I pulled out for that was, to be flexible and open to change. That can be one of the toughest challenges or the toughest things for us to deal with. And again, I'll speak for myself, and I want to talk for everybody else. But I know when I look at, being flexible and just not being so rigid. Again, a lot of us have a routine. We wake up every day, we do this, we do this, we do this, very regimented, very rigid schedules. Work, we've got to have this, we got to have that. The people that we talk to and associate with, the places we go, just a lot of things. We just become um, so regimented, just so stiff with life, and it's just because we know what works. Not necessarily we know what works, but we know, this is the path. This feels comfortable. Um, and so when you're like that, you put yourself in a position to miss out on what God is trying to do for you, trying to do possibly through you. And that helps to, and if you're open and you're adaptable, you're flexible, you'll find out that God will start to expose you to so many different things. He will help to craft and guide us to understand that where we're at right now is truly circumstantial, but to go to that next place, you've got to do things differently. And in faith, you've got to be adaptable. You've got to understand that God will put people in your life that you never thought you would talk to, you never thought you would meet. Um, he would put you in places that you may not necessarily have been. What's the word I want to say? You may not have necessarily qualified to be there. Some people say that's favor, but a lot of us will miss out on favor and blessings because we're not open to do something different or out of our character. We're not open to do something that we're not accustomed to doing. And that lack of adaptability, that lack of being flexible and just open to change from the people, the places, the things that we do, even in our praise and worship to God, um, you have to be adaptable, because sometimes you go through a season. Some of us are maybe very vocal in how we praise God, and we're very open about telling all that God has done for us, even in the process of going through it. And God may be speaking and saying, "Hey, in this season, keep quiet. Nobody needs to know this, but the people that I tell you." And you may be the kind of person like, I'm bragging on God. It's not me, but sometimes we put ourselves in warfare that we shouldn't have to go through. Sometimes it's just listening. It's not being adaptable and being flexible, open to change. It's not just about, doing something, going somewhere. Sometimes it's just being quiet when we're normally We're normally very talkative, because God knows, he knows that, he's working on our behalf, and he knows the limits that we can handle. And when you get to be vocal on some things, you start getting some unwanted and unnecessary pressure that you can't handle, and then it basically negates, all the things that God is trying to do in our lives, because we start focusing on, what people are saying, or we start getting we get people preying on us, or people, um kind of driving to take us off of our game. So adaptability is it falls into every aspect of our lives. But be open. We've got to be open to change, to truly walk in faith. I mean, everybody that has seen God do miracles in our lives, relationships, finances, health, this everything that we do, we know that, you know, it's changed us to a place where we've got to be open, and it's always something that we don't expect. That's part of the adaptability, is, you know, expecting the extraordinary, you know. And but if you're not going to be in that position, then, God will be limited on what he can give to you, because he can't expose you. He'll maintain you, he'll sustain you where you're at. But when you want to go to that next level, I hate to use the phrase, new levels, new devils, but you know, with that new level, there are new challenges that will come. The enemy will attack you harder, because you get closer and closer to where God wants you, and that's what the enemy tries to do, is steal that purpose from you, to take you away from the promise, and really what you were created to do. Because when we realize what we're created to do and we're walking in that, there's no stopping us. And the enemy knows the more of us that are doing that, the harder and the weaker the harder it would be for him to really have any power, and he becomes weaker, right? So we've got to be adaptable. Listen to God, hear him, know and be able to discern the people that he puts in our lives, the paths he puts us on, because that is going to help us and sort of even accelerate our path in life. The third thing is, the third letter in the word faith is inspiration, right? So as our walk with Christ, as we walk as Christians, really thinking about inspiration, encouraging, and uplifting others. How much of that are we doing? Right? It's one thing to, uplift the people that we're around, our family, and we should be doing it, right? Wife, kid, spouse, whatever, parents, family. Sometimes it's easy to do that because you're familiar with them, right? There's a relationship. But how many times do you go out of your way to uplift others? you know your story that you think is, nothing special, people are looking at you as an inspiration. I don't know. I don't know how many times I've had people tell me, and it still shocks me today, like, man, you guys really, you inspire me. Whether it's, me and my journey, my wife and our marriage, just, they're inspired. And I'm like, for what? We do the same thing y'all do. And I hate to minimize that, but I'm not a bragger. So if things are going good and people are inspired by some of the things that we have, and they see the love and energy, I appreciate that. And when people come to me and they're open, or they give me the door to speak into them, I try to make sure I take that opportunity to do so, because I've had people do that for me, you know, sometimes unsolicited, but it was right on time. And I know God, and you may call it prophecy. You can have people prophesy to you that you don't even know. They may not even be somebody that believes in prophecy. They're not a prophet. They never call themselves a prophet. But God will use different people, random people sometimes, to deliver a message to you that tells you, you know, his power, that tells you who he is, and that tells you that, you're on the right path. And he will use you to do the same thing. You may not know why you said that, what you said to that person the other day. The person at work who normally gets on your nerves, you guys never get along. but you just gave that person, just a quick little, pat on the back and like, hey, don't worry about it. It's all going to be good. You're doing a great job. Just keep moving forward. And little small words like that, and it may change, your relationship. It could have stopped that person. A kind word to somebody on the street, you know, how much could that have changed somebody's life? They were thinking about, ending it all. And just that short time you took to encourage them at the grocery store when you ask them how they speak to you, and they have that kind of that energy. And y'all ever been to a grocery store and or just anywhere, and somebody in service, you speak to them and they kind of give you a half-hearted how you doing, and you can tell something's not right. And instead of tearing them down and saying, I'm getting on them, calling for management because they were rude, or they didn't greet you the way you thought you ought to be greeted, or they didn't greet you with the same energy that you came at them with. That's your maybe that's an opportunity. Maybe God is speaking to you saying, hey, just ask that person, how are you doing? No, how are you really doing? And it's been interesting. I've had some of those moments where, you know, I I just spoke and said, "Hey," my energy wasn't off where I was like mad or anything, but I just, probably distracted, thinking about things that, why was I at the store? What I have to do when I leave the store, and they spoke to me and they said, "Hey, how you doing?" And sometimes people don't even say this, like, they said, "Hey" to me, and I said, "Hey, how are you doing?" We do it almost, it's almost robotic, and because we say it all the time, like, "Hey, how you doing?" And so most of us don't even think like people take that literally and say, "Well, you're asking me how I'm doing." And the person in line or the person at the register, they were like, "I'm just having a bad day," you know. And I could have easily just stopped and was like, "Oh man, well, hopefully it'll get better," you know. And even that's not bad. But I just asked them, I was like, "Well, what's going on?" Just casual conversation. What's going on? They begin to talk about things, and I begin to encourage them, and just tell them like, man, I told them I was inspired because they were telling me all the stuff they were dealing with in school, and got a lot of stuff going on. I'm like, man, you know what? That's inspirational to me. I just want to encourage you. The fact that you've been doing this, going to school, taking care of the things that you've been taking care of, and having the family trouble and the money issues that you had, the fact that you're still here and you're almost there. You've been doing it for this long. I'm inspired, and I appreciate you being here today, you working as hard as you are, and I'm glad that we had a chance to meet, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And just you can tell something lifted up off of that person, that the young lady at the register, because when I came up, she definitely wasn't smiling. It wasn't on any flirtatious type of thing. I saw the attitude, and I could have did one or two things. I could have gave her the same energy back she gave me, or what they say, and I'm not gonna say that, but instead of saying kill him with kindness, I greeted her with that. And so that kind of inspired, that her story, her being able to tell me kind of a little bit about, just the challenges she been having. And she was like, I don't even know why I'm telling you this because you probably don't care. And I was like, nah, I do, you know. And again, she's doing this. It wasn't where we held up the line because I had people behind me yelling. She was ringing up the groceries and we were just having a quick conversation. I just encouraged her, said, just you're almost there. You're almost there. Just keep going. Trust me, you're gonna be, happy about that. She was like, I'm only planning on working here for a little bit longer until I finish out school. I'll be done in a few months. And this was like earlier in the year. And she had a plan and everything was set up. She just had to get through this time. She was working to basically take care of her bills, and help her through school. And then she had, a job basically lined up when she graduated. That was, it was like, again, hey, you're almost there. And sometimes they just need that little push. We all do. So, when we talk about inspiration and everything, that's what it's about, encouraging and uplifting others, because you doing that helps to build their faith because they know, like, hey, that's a right now word, or they'll say, you hear a rhema word, that's a word that you needed, and it can come from anybody. She didn't think she was going to get it from, just me, an average guy walking in line. Probably where people out throughout the whole day matched her energy, or somebody, she could have started off with good energy. Somebody, got her upset or something, rude, could have been a rude customer, whatever the case may be. And it just, everything else. And she looked around at all her circumstances and was just like, you know what, I've had it. I don't even want to be here anymore. But, again, I don't know why God had me go in a little further just to ask, but it was worth it. And those are just examples. People have done the same thing for me and been encouraging to me and my family, at different times. So, I'll just call this one time. I mentioned it before, but we were out at Puckett's in a city called Columbia, Tennessee. And, it was my wife, myself, and my daughter. And we were just there. I think my wife and I went up there to take her to get some groceries, checking in on her while she was in school. And, a young man, I think I mentioned this before, but this young man, just in our conversation, just sitting there, he was just like, you know what? I just feel like, I want to pray for y'all. And it was crazy because we were going through some things, and just the fact that he took that time, he felt it in his spirit to pray, asked if we had a church, and we said, yeah, we got a church and everything, but we didn't dismiss him, and he just prayed with us, and it was the coolest thing that we sat right there in the middle of that restaurant and had somebody pray for us. We went in the restaurant arguing or something, but he just, God knew, God used him. So it was just a great thing. So again, you never know where inspiration will come from. God will use different people to bring it. He will use you to deliver to others. But don't minimize that, because that's what faith is. God, knowing that God is going to leverage others, not just you, but leverage others to help you and get you where you need to be. So the next one is trust. And it kind of, all these kind of roll up into each other in a way. But when we talk about trust and understanding that, it means to believe in this sense, believe in yourself and those around you. Um, we have to believe in ourselves. And sometimes we can be our own worst critic. I know I am. I can be very hard on myself with things. And that's a challenge that I need to let go. Sometimes I have to have people, my wife included, like Ricky, I don't know, don't stop being so hard on yourself. It's not that bad, and that encouragement I need. I try to give the same thing to others, but sometimes I've got to be able to just believe in myself and believe in my abilities and believe that, you know, God has brought me where I am and that he's not just going to leave me here. Sometimes it's easy to forget all that God has done, and you think that God is going to just, bring you to this point in life and, like, okay, well, I've done enough. I've done all I'm going to do. You're good. I'll talk to you later, and just leave you there, and you're left to navigate things by yourself. Um, but we've got to have that belief in ourselves. And I keep saying we, but because I'm included in that. But I know that is one of the biggest things when you talk about faith. You talk about really understanding what faith means. You got to have trust. You got to trust you and trust your love for God, trust your love for yourself, love for your family and those around you. Because then when you start talking about, okay, I'm believing in myself and then those around me, well, I got to also believe and trust that God is putting the right people behind me. And God is not going to put anybody bad around you. The enemy is going to place people to distract you. He's going to set snares and traps and all that to distract you. But you got to know God put those people around you for a reason. Um, and that's where through relationship you have the ability to discern, and that through discernment, like, these people are really here for me. The people that I have, and sometimes, unfortunately, guys, sometimes it's not our family. As much as we want to believe that our family has as much as we want to believe that our family has, our best intentions, sometimes they don't. And I don't want to make it seem like everybody's just purposely out to be malicious. You got to understand, some people are in different places in their lives. And I do believe in spirits. I believe that there are negative spirits that are out there working, and even in those that we love the most. Sometimes they're acting out of character. Sometimes it's just, it's jealousy, it's envy. Sometimes it's not even about us. It's just themselves. And, you know, they don't have that belief in themselves. They don't have that inspiration and encouragement. Um, and so it's tough. And sometimes they lash out, or they do things that typically would be out of character, but because of the circumstances and things they're going through, that is the reality of it. But it can be those people around you. And so you've got to know how to, one, believe in yourself, be able to protect yourself. I tell my daughter all the time, you've got to protect your energy. It's similar to what they talk about on the airplane. When you fly, and they always do the safety videos or safety, go through the safety manual and tell you about the plane, and they tell you in the case of emergency, put your mask on first, then go to help others around you that may have trouble, or small children, whatever. You know, the reason why you got to help yourself is because you're no good to the world if you're not good with yourself. You're not in a good place. Your gifts, God gives us all our own gifts. We have our own special purpose to be here, you know, and there's not one of us that are the same. Even twins. I mean, people say, well, you got identical twins. Fingerprints different, DNA's different. They may look the same. They may have the same voice sometimes. They may have the same manual. They may share or complete each other's sentences. There's a lot of things, but if you look down to the basic structure, some of the key indicators, they're two different people. You're special. We're special. So, understanding that I'm here for a reason. I don't care what your parents may have told you as a young child, that, you're a mistake, you weren't supposed to happen. And, people will use sometimes people use um, their issues in life to try to project that on others. You know, you can't focus on that. Believe in you, trust that God put you here for a reason, and that God put people around you for a reason. And sometimes you may not agree with them, but you've got to understand their heart. And if you know that they truly are for you and they want the best for you, there's nothing better than that. And those are the relationships you should cherish. People who are going to challenge you to be your best because they want to see you at your best. So trust, trust. You gotta trust. You gotta trust that. To have faith, to truly walk in faith, you have to trust. You have to trust you. You have to trust the people that God is putting around you. And then the last one in faith is humility. Um, and I think this one is kind of self-explanatory, but when we talk about it, stay grounded, recognize the value of others. Again, we'll sort of dissect it into two parts. When you talk about humility and being humble, I know a lot of people use them the same way. Humility, and being humble, humbleness. When we talk about just humility, staying grounded, making sure that, and when people say stay grounded, I know it means a lot of things, but what are you rooted in? That's your source, right? So, for believers, we should stay grounded through the word of God, hearing God's voice, our relationship with Christ. That's our source. That's where we stay grounded to. Sometimes we try to we say that, our family and friends, keep us grounded. And to some point that's the case, but you've got to be careful of some of that, because they can have you grounded in some bad stuff. You know, and or there's family traditions and curses that have been passed around, and the moment that you may be the one person to break the curse, and as soon as you're the one who breaks it, there's a lot of chatter, there's a lot of dissension, there's a lot of just bad energy, because you're the one who you may be the one to break all those generational curses, but because you're standing out, you're different, you know, people try to call you on that because you're not like them. And so but you've got to stay grounded in grounded in who you are. And that goes back to, when we talked about the inspiration, being able to encourage others, being flexible, change, all those things that we brought up, trusting, believing in yourself, all those things that we spoke about. When you start going through the other parts of the acronym of faith, you know, that's going to help you to stay grounded, because you believe in yourself, you know who you are, you're loyal and faithful, you're committed, you're showing all of these things, you're living all of these things, you're walking it out, you're hearing from God. We're not perfect, but we know that we're walking in the right direction. People are going to talk about you no matter what. I would rather for somebody to talk about me going in the right direction, feeling good about myself, and, living my life knowing that I'm doing it for God. When I'm not perfect, I'm calling it out on myself. I'm asking for forgiveness, and moving in that way. Like that's staying grounded. Making sure that my family, the ones that I know God gave to me, put in my life, you know, sometimes they can give you the best reality checks. My family does it a lot. My wife is very good at that. And it's not in a bad way. Like she tells me like, hey, the kids may not want to come to you about this because they think you're going to react this way. And it's like, wow, why would my kids think that? Maybe it's how I respond. My wife would tell me like this or that. And I can do the same thing with her and my kids. If you put in the right environment, the right conversation, they'll open up and tell you that stuff. And it's like, okay, when the people who are the closest to me, the people that I know love me and I love them, yeah, you got to think about that. Those are the ones that stay grounded. The mentors, the people that God has put in your life to help get into the next place. Those are the people that are going to help you stay grounded. Remind you of who you are at times. And sometimes it's not even about, you acting like you're better than everybody. Sometimes it's just reminding you who you are, whose you are. So that's important. And the other thing is recognizing the value of others. Um, we are not put on this earth to walk alone. We're not put on this earth to walk by ourselves without interaction with others. Recognizing the value of others is important because again, that goes back to what we talked about the being in the inspiration. Understanding that hey, there's value for the people God put in your life. There's value. There's value in everybody. Everybody has a purpose, a worth, and a value, and recognizing that in others. That's humility. When it's easy to put yourself, well, for some people, it's easy to put themselves on a pedestal. But when you have to, not have to, but when you see others doing their thing, you're like, you know what? I got to be honest. You're doing a great job. And you should always be honest. But you're doing a great job. No, there's no and there's no competition. And I think that's the other part when you start talking about humility. There's no competition. I mean, what God has for me is for me. What He has for you is for you. It's okay if I recognize the value that you bring. If I recognize the gifts that you have, that doesn't diminish you as a person. Doesn't diminish any of us. In fact, it really just talks about the character of the person you are because you have no ego to be able to tell somebody like, dude, you're good. I mean, and I hear it a lot from people. I hear musicians. I hear, you hear athletes sometimes, and they're like, man, I didn't, in a heat of competition, I didn't want to admit this, but after the game, I had to tell them like, you cold, you a bad boy, whatever. And you hear them talk about that, or after they retire, they don't want to say it because they don't want to lose that competitive edge. But after they retire, they start talking about, man, this person right here was one of the best ever. You hear a lot of people talk about Michael Jordan that way. Like, oh, we were afraid of him, you know, and you start hearing the stories more and more, great athletes, great actors and actresses, just great people. You hear about them and people will speak, people will really speak to the core of who they are, speak to their values. They will speak to the type of person they are. Um, and that being humble. I mean, if you can't give somebody praise and tell them what their value is, and recognize their gifts and you know it, then that's not really being humble. That's like I'm too proud to tell somebody like, man, look, you're good at that. She is a great, whatever that is, you got to be able to do that and be okay with that. That's humility. And when you talk about walking in faith, when you see others being blessed, let's throw that in there. When we talk about humility, right? When we see others getting blessed because of, you understand people go through struggles, they go through different challenges, and you're like, man, I'm seeing them being blessed, and it's blessed me. And be able to say like your faithfulness, like I know God is blessing you because of your faithfulness, versus I've been faithful too. Why God ain't doing this for me? And people sometimes we can get that attitude like, man, I've been doing all of this. I know this person don't tithe. I know this person don't even go to church. This person, you start looking at ways to sort of, instead of recognizing the value, recognizing all the flaws of somebody else. That's not humility. Humility is like, you know what? I may be where I am, but when I see people around me being blessed, I know that God is still alive. I know that God is still here. I know God is still in the miracle business. He's still working wonders. For me, again, that's inspiration. That's encouragement. That to me is helping me to understand. And I'm like, you know what? I can recognize now. I can come out from under my own world, my own cloudiness of whatever that circumstance is at the time, to be able to say, I see the greatness, I see the blessing on you, and be able to call it out like, man, you are blessed. Like your hard work and dedication, you all the stuff that you went through, you know, like I see that. And that is humility at its core. Despite my circumstance, I can still recognize who you are and what you are to whatever it is. It can be at work. Again, it can be somebody who you guys are in competition, whether it's, a guy, a woman, you can be in competition for a position, and they may get, or you guys are both been at the company for the same time, they get a promotion before you. you know Humility is being able to say, you know what, honestly, they've been doing these past few projects, they've done a great job, you know done great work, great outcomes, the results were there, they deserve it. Instead of saying, man, I worked just as hard, I did just as much. Because what you're doing is you're blocking your blessing. You're not being humble, and I just say, if it's meant for you, it's meant for you. Doesn't mean that you got to take away from somebody else. You're not taking away your value by recognizing the value of others. And that's the part about staying grounded, that steps outside of that, or that's basically what that trust means. And we talked about the T in faith. Believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, and you have faith in God, and you know that no matter what, God is going to take care of you, it doesn't hurt you to truly praise somebody and be genuine about it, to talk about their value, whether you feel it's your time, or, just say, okay, God, I don't know what it is. You got, this is for them, and I know you got something for me, and leave it at that. It don't have to be about I'm hating, you know, you going to be taken care of. And it's easy for people to get frustrated and get upset when they see other people around them where they think they're prospering, and that prosperity that they're getting, means that you can't get anything. God ain't falling short on blessings. As long as there's a living God, there's everything for us. He can do it all. He can give you whatever you need. He can give that person whatever they need. He can give her whatever she needs, him whatever he needs, whatever it is. He can provide it all. So, what does it cost us to recognize that value of other people? Does it cost us anything? Does it? I don't think it does. So, the same, they say the same energy that is used to hate on somebody it takes the equal amount of energy to hate on somebody doesn't than it does to praise them, or give them positive feedback, right? And what's driving that is really emotion, not faith. Because if you got faith, you're like, look, I'm happy for them. They're being blessed. God is still in the blessing business. Then I know my blessing is there. And that's really, really comes down to. So, as we prepare to close this out, one of the things that I really want to make sure of is that we all understand there is nothing there's nothing that we can't accomplish together. There's nothing that we can't accomplish through faith, through hard work, through dedication, believing in ourselves. You know, we have all of that ability in us. We can make a choice to go the negative direction. We can go to choice to go to positive direction. It's really, I hate to simplify it, but it's really that. It really is that. It's that simple. Um, so again, I just want to encourage everybody today, as we look at where we are in life, we look at where we are in this year. We just crossed the halfway point of the year. We still got half a year left. We don't have to wait until the end of the year to say, "Oh, it's the holiday season. I want to show love for everybody and love and peace in the world." And everybody goes into this state of euphoria to close out the year. Start now. Start walking in faith now. Start leveraging faith now. That is what it's about. That is what we're supposed to do. Faithfulness, adaptability, inspiration, trust, humility. Keep that in the back of our minds. Understand that is really what we are created to do, to walk in faith. Talk it, speak it, believe it. Trust him, trust yourself. Trust those that he puts around you. Stay in communication with God. He will show you the people that should be around you, and he will help you to get rid of or move those people who shouldn't be around you away from you. God can do it all. So, as always, I just want to, close out by saying, I appreciate everybody for listening. Um, just know that you are loved. Know that you were here, you were created for a purpose. And one of the hardest things in life is feeling like you don't have value, but you do, because God wouldn't have you here right now if you didn't have a value, if you didn't have a purpose, if there wasn't substance to your life. Your circumstances are temporary, and they really are. I've seen so many times where, especially lately, I've seen a lot of people passing away for various reasons. And the sad part about it is, you always hear people say, "Man, they had so much life to give. They were just getting to that point. They were just starting to really find themselves, and then they're gone." And some of those people are gone because they didn't see the value in that they were bringing people. And so when you think about it, it's like, well, why didn't they know? Because maybe you didn't tell them. Maybe you're, and I'm not, this is not a guilt trip thing, but this is just those moments where God is talking to you, where you hear that little voice saying, "Hey, say this, maybe do this, maybe buy their lunch today, maybe pay for gas for them, maybe, maybe just call them, maybe just go spend some time with that person. Say, hey, I'm just going to come hang out at your house today." So many times I get caught, and I'm bad at this. My wife and I, we talk about this all the time. I'm bad at this. I'm like, man, so and so been on my mind to call, and I was gonna call them. And sometimes they wind up calling me, and I say, "Man, I was just thinking about you. It's crazy you called me because I was just thinking about you." And I feel convicted because I'm like, I should have been the one to pick up the phone and call or shoot them a text message. And then sometimes you get those moments or those times where something catastrophic happens to that person. And you think like, man, I was gonna call them. That's crazy. They've been on my heart for a while, and I said I was gonna reach out and see how things are going. You may not even know their situation, but God will put you on their heart or put them on your heart and put you on their heart. How many times have you reached out to somebody that you haven't talked to in a while? It's like, man, I'm so glad you called me, and they just blah, and they just let it all out. Like they're like, look, this been going on, this been going on. I'm like, man, I ain't know all this. Now I know why you've been on my heart. Now I know why God told me to call you. Let me pray. Let's do something. Let me see if I can use my resources to help you. That's what connection is about. That's what faith is about. Because you'll start to see God is going to put you, or is going to put people in your life that's going, yeah, where we can help each other. Or it may just be that you're the person that's going to help them get to that next place, or help them, keep them out of jail, keep them out of, the grave. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? Relationship. So I'm going to let that one go. I appreciate everybody listening. Hey, listen, Airflow Podcast is on all the major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcast. We are available in iHeart. We are available through Facebook Podcast. They still have Facebook Podcast open. We are available also on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Airflow Podcast. So check us out there. But yeah, we're going to continue to push this thing. I'm working on a couple of new guests to come on to the podcast. It's been a while since I've done an interview, and I want to really start to get other people in here so you can hear inspirational stories from some pretty cool people doing some great things in this world. And I think it's important for everybody to hear that. So um, also Billionaire Flow Clothing. I'm wearing a shirt here for those that are watching on YouTube, but our brand is still out there. Our purpose is still to inspire believers, inspire those to walk as the heirs that they are in the kingdom. Um, and so if you are an heir, wear it. It's more than just money. It's not just apparel. It's not just clothing. It's a lifestyle. It's a mindset. You are great. You are an heir, and you should walk like it. Treat others, treat yourself as that person, as an heir. So I love you guys. Until next time, be blessed, and we'll talk again.